Hello gentle viewers, this is Guardian. Welcome you to an update video on Tabletop Simulator. There are two things I want to talk about today, which is the pace of games and Heroes of Normandy specifically. Um, and then I'll close the video by asking for some recommendations. So, first things first, beginning May 4th, when we play Glasgow, I'm going to slow down the pace of Tabletop Simulator. I'm only going to do it every 2 weeks instead of every week. I thought about just taking another break of a couple of weeks, but in all honesty, I like having an extra week because it gives me a chance to make sure that A, I really want to play the game, and B, if it's a game like Battle for Souls, I had to record that video like 7 times because I kept making rules mistakes. And I prefer to try to not do rules mistakes unless they're, something fairly minor. I might just punt on that and just to get the video out. But these videos do take a lot of time to record unless it's a game I either know intimately well or it's really, really simple. Chances are I'm going to make some giant rules goof because I'm not thinking clearly, and then that's what it looks like. So that's one thing I'm going to start doing. So May 4th will be Glasgow, and May 18th will be Jurassic Park Danger. Heroes of Normandy is what I want to talk about next. I was all ready to record some Heroes of Normandy, which is a World War II tactical board game. And then I started looking at the pieces and reading the rules again, and I came to a realization. I don't really like tactical war games. I already knew that. Like, in my heart of hearts, I knew that. It's why I don't like Total War games. They just don't do anything for me. I don't like fighting the battles. I like tactical military history. I think operational history is more interesting to me because who won one particular battle is important, obviously. But, like, where you're getting down to, General so-and-so places troops here instead of 2 yards to the right, therefore making the battle last 20 seconds longer or whatever. It just doesn't sing to me. Not the way strategic warfare or operational warfare does. In board games or video games or history. So that's why I'm deciding not to play Heroes of Normandy. There's a couple of mods which are both quite good. It's not the mod's fault that I don't want to play the game. It's the fact that I don't want to play the game. There is a great demo which really boils the game down to its essence. I will note that it doesn't include a rulebook, but it does include a link to a YouTube video you can watch, so you can learn how to play the game that way. And then there's also a scripted one that doesn't work with only one player because if you're not seated in a seat, it doesn't know what to do. So no Heroes of Normandy. I'm not saying I'll never play it, but I'll probably never play it, if I'm honest with you. It's just not the kind of game that appeals to me. It's right there with, like, hex and counter war games. With very, very few exceptions, that's another type of game that just doesn't do it for me. I'd much rather play a point-to-point war game, or if I'm gonna play a hex game, I want miniatures. I don't want counters. I just don't find counters engaging for whatever reason. Unless it's a point-to-point game, where I don't have to think about the terrain quite as much. That's just me. I'm not saying Heroes of Normandy isn't a great game, I'm just saying it's not necessarily my favorite. I would play it if somebody else wanted to play it, but I would never volunteer to play it. And I don't think I'd like to teach it either. It's like most war games have a lot of dinky little rules. That's what makes them war games. But Heroes of Normandy seems particularly egregious for a game that's supposed to be fairly rules light. Because they try to cram everything onto the pieces themselves. And I have to give a bit of the wag of the finger to the rulebook, which is not great. The people who wrote the rulebook, English is clearly not their first language, and I have no problem with that. But it does make the rulebook kind of hard to read at times, and it makes it kind of hard to sort out how things are meant to go. So all that said is why I'm not playing Heroes of Normandy. But instead we will be playing Jurassic Park Danger on May the 18th, And after that, I haven't decided yet, which is another reason I want to slow the pace down a bit. There's a couple games in my brain that I really want to play for the channel. I just don't know which one yet. The way I do these is I do them in buckets. I try to make them so that there's a nice mix of light and heavy games, that there's always at least one war game or war game adjacent, because I do love playing war games. But that's kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about, is I want to make sure that I'm playing games that you guys are enjoying. Because unlike something like, say, OTP or Crusader Kings or anything like that, video views on Tabletop Simulator vary quite wildly. GMT games videos do quite well because GMT games always retweets, which is fantastic. Thank you, marketing department. But I've kind of reached a point where I don't have any other GMT games I really want to play because I either don't have them or they just don't appeal to me, like Combat Commander. I watched a video of it. It seemed kind of cool, but it's also the kind of game that I know right from the get-go I would play it very sparingly because I don't like tactical war games. But, for instance, Mini Rogue has almost 100 views already, which is great. Aquatica, which came out a couple weeks later, only has 8 views. And I'm sure a lot of it is just people like certain games and don't like other games, which is totally fine. I just spent a couple minutes on why I don't like a particular game. So, no biggie. But it is to the point where I'm looking for recommendations. One thing I'm going to start doing in the nearest future is I might revisit games I've already played that have an expansion that change the game in some way. I'm not going to play this one anytime soon, but Star Wars Rebellion has Empire at War. Or, not Empire at War, what am I talking about? Rise of the Empire. Which adds Rogue One characters to the game. And it changes the game quite significantly and makes it a lot more fun, in my opinion, to the point where I don't think I would play the base game again unless I was playing with somebody for the first time. There's some other games like that I have expansions for that I might go back and play. I've got a decent list of about 15 games that I'm planning to play, so I've got lots of time. But I do want to ask for recommendations, specifically games I haven't played yet that you'd like me to play, and games I have played that you'd like me to play again. Now, regarding that first point, important to remember, I won't play a game if I don't have the board game. That's just the way I play the game. The only exception would be if there's a paid DLC in Tabletop Simulator, or if it's an official developer model of a mod. So, barring that, definitely recommend games. I'm going to go ahead and post my Board Game Geek collection in the description of the video. You can see what games I have, and I do keep that relatively frequently updated. So if there's any game on there that's like, wow, that sounds super cool, then by all means suggest it. We're actually thinking about culling our board game collection a little bit. We bought a couple games the other day that we didn't like at all. They were all fairly light games we bought at like the grocery store, and we didn't like them at all. And we kind of got to thinking, we're like, there's certain games that we just don't like to play. Or games that are just so complicated that they're not worth spending time on. So we might be actually going through a bit of a call here and going to our friendly local game store when they do their flea market and just see if anybody else wants to buy them. Maybe get us some credit to buy something else we do want to play. I'm certainly not getting tired of board games, but there's certain individual board games that I just don't like at all. And I don't think they're worth keeping. So, that's what's going on with TTS. It's still going to be happening. It's still one of my favorite things to do on the channel personally, regardless of the number of views, because I love board games. And I want to see the board game industry succeed. The main reason why I won't do mods for games I don't have is because unless I'm only playing it once, and if it's a good enough game to play once, I'm going to want to play it more than once. It really is bad for the developers. Board games are not a high profit industry. One of the reasons people go to Kickstarter to do board games so often these days is because it's a lot of money to launch a board game. And if you don't have the funding for it, then you either have to go to a really big house who's going to eat part of your profits, or your game's just going to flop. Not because it's a bad game, but because you can't get the eyeballs on it that you need to get on it. So that's why I always make sure I own the game first, so I don't feel like I'm pirating or stealing from the developers. Um, so, so every 2 weeks starting May 4th, I'll post a new list of games to Twitter on May 4th, so you can see what's coming up next. And no Heroes of Normandie. And do share in the comments, of course, if you have recommendations or you just like to see me play something again. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. It really means a lot to me every time I see that a TTS video is doing better than average. It just convinces me that there are other people who want to see board games played, so they can decide if they want to buy a copy of it for them for their very own. Until next time, however, this has been AppGuardian. Thank you for watching, and I bid you good day.